Hi, this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology. My name is Stephen, and this is episode 12. So let's look at what we're going to do today. As usual, we're going to look at the void of course moon calendar for this next work week. We'll take a look at markets today, a number of charts, and include what I call my Astro energy dates for these markets: the Dow Jones, gold, US dollar, Bitcoin, silver. And then we'll look at the Fed FMOC meeting, which is happening on July 30th. It's a pretty important one because they always seem important, but this one, there is a possibility they may cut rates by 50 basis points, which seems extreme given how they say the economy is going. But I'll look at the astrology and I'll see if I see anything. I think I forgot to say this is July 28th, Sunday, July 28th. I'm doing this recording. Okay, here's the void of course moon calendar for this next week. And as usual, I give a little definition and some recommendations. What is the void of course moon? The void of course moon is the transition period when the moon is moving from one astrological sign to another. And that takes place every 2.5 days. So let's say it moves from Leo to Virgo. Usually that transition only takes, several minutes, 15 minutes, for example. But every now and then, it takes much longer, hours, and sometimes 24 hours. We had one a couple weeks ago that was 30 hours long. And why is it helpful and I think important to know about these longer transition times? Well, this is because during these longer void of course moon periods, from my experience and from the tradition of astrology, what happens is that there is a shift in people's psychology. The key words that I use is that there's a sense of disengagement, kind of a shifting into neutral. Now that doesn't sound so bad, but when everybody is shifting into neutral, then keeping things on track, having things go smoothly, accomplishing things simply becomes more difficult. Ideally, if a person can go play golf on a void of course moon, a long void of course moon that happens on a Wednesday, that's great, because void of course moon periods are perfect for relaxing, kicking back, regrouping, rejuvenating, and so forth. They are not good for making big decisions, engaging in critical business activities, is spending a lot of money. Normally things which you spend money on, all of a sudden a week later you realize it was a dumb decision. That's very common. And it's not a good time to initiate important initiate important changes in your life, like getting married or whatever. And so in my life, if I see a void of course moon happening and extending in the middle of the week, I try to schedule my important stuff around it. Try to move it to another day or earlier in the day when it's not void of course. If that's impossible, here's my recommendation. Try to do things that are kind of secondary in nature, related to your business, that are more like maintenance work. If that important business meeting just cannot be changed, I would avoid signing anything like a contract, that would be high on my list. But also I would just pay attention to every little detail, double check, ask extra questions or whatever, because it's those little details that often get messed up during a void of course moon. So anyway, here we have sort of a shorter one this week. It's happening on Thursday, August 1st. It's happening in the afternoon, Pacific Daylight Time, 1:48, and then it extends into the early morning on Friday. So if you don't live on the Pacific Coast, you have to do a little conversion, add 3 hours, East Coast, and so forth. So that's my recommendation void of course moon this week. So let's look at some charts and where we're at. Again, I incorporate what I call astral energy days. I plot them out into the future, and I draw them into, I make them, indicate them by these vertical lines. Everything else on the chart are just typical classic technical analysis. I draw these horizontal blue lines as support and resistance. I use momentum indicators, RSI, MACD, and then I try to combine them. I also have studied, sort of the quality of these energy days somewhat. That's just too complex to get into. But I do know that the days that we've been having relative to the major indexes, and here I'm just using the ETF DIA for the Dow, all of these historically have some association with greater volatility. This one that's happening on August 9th, one that just happened on the 24th, and actually the one going back to June 19. Just, for some reason, all of these had the same character. It hasn't quite, transpired as being increasing volatility. But the sort of the $6,400 question, when it comes to markets is, how much can the what I regard as the manipulation in markets override, sort of inherent cyclical activity. And so we bump up against that question a lot with this. Sometimes it matches up very closely, and sometimes, it's not. And I attribute the ones where I'm off primarily to manipulation, if you want me to be blunt about it. But you can look at the back, so you can kind of see this was a transition period right here, and then we started drifting down. Very often on an energy date, we get extra market activity, very often reversals, or a boost if it's in a rally mode. Transition point here. Here we may be in a transition point, okay? But we have a Fed meeting coming up in a few days, which is going to be very important. I think the market is expecting a 25 basis point cut in rates. They're expecting that. I think that's already in the price, in the level of the market. And so, the big surprise is if we get a 50-point cut or no cut. Those things I think would be surprises. So anyway, mark these dates on your calendar, particularly this August 9th one. And just as a reminder, we did have one on the 24th, which frequently, from my research, indicates that we have a change in trend. Okay, let's move on. Gold. So you kind of got an overview of what these astro energy dates do. This extra activity. Sometimes I give myself a leeway of a day or two, but very often there's significant moves occur frequently, okay? Nothing is 100% in technical analysis, but it's my supplement that I use. Well, what's happening in gold? Well, gold is a little downtrend. The momentum indicators have worked themselves off. They're no longer overbought. We had what looked like a pennant here. We're having what could be just a back test, and actually this evening on Sunday in the futures markets, they could reflect some change in gold, because we have one of these dates occurring actually today. Because this chart was from Friday. Okay, so July, this is 29th, but it's the 28th and 29th, I know. So be on the lookout. We could have a change this evening in the futures market and tomorrow in gold. US dollar broke out of this channel. It is heading towards, recent highs, it seems to be. It is getting a little overbought. I know just from the astrology, we did have a very strong Astro Day right here on July 15th. And it created some momentum, some volatility in there, but here we are. And you know, I could double check on something. If you excuse me for just a second, let me see if I can quickly look at my notes. And I wanted to see, yeah, the one on, actually, it is, it takes place on a Saturday. Okay, the next one for the dollar takes place on a Saturday, and August 3rd. So it may not, register in the markets. The one after that is on August 15th. Both of those are still sort of bullish. So we'll see. I mean, the bottom line is that you look for extra significant movement in the market, up or down, okay? And you apply that information to the context that the technicals have created, whether it's overbought, oversold, and whether it's bumping up against resistance and so forth. We are getting close to resistance because we're getting close to these old highs. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Okay, silver. Silver, we just had an energy date. Looks like it's some sort of transition. It may just turn into consolidation over a week or so. Trading sideways. That's my best guess. This is pretty significant support. This blue line coming back to this high. It may come down, touch that support, but my guess is we're going to trade sideways, especially in light of what I think the Fed may do, at least my guess with the Fed. Bitcoin. Bitcoin has definitely been consolidating here, okay? We are getting oversold, in my estimation, looking back at history. We are getting oversold, okay? Different ways to draw the pattern of this chart, but it could be drawn, looking at the green lines, it could be drawn as a descending wedge. If I draw the bottom of this candlestick, this long wick, sometimes I don't, but if we use that very bottom, we have what looks like a descending wedge that frequently, when it's broken out to the upside, creates a strong move. In addition, if we just look at this whole pattern, we come back to the pattern that we had here, we have a similar looking price movement. It's almost like a fractal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, up, 4, 5, and then a move. Okay? So I'm looking at the technicals. I'm looking at these support resistance levels here, and we have some fairly strong Astro dates coming up at the end of this week, and I am looking at Thursday and Friday, which are the 1st and 2nd of August. So, mark that down, see how it works out. This is not trading advice. This is, you can look at it as an experiment. But in addition to what I just said, I look back at the energy dates in the Bitcoin. Here we had a big down day on that vertical line, okay? Again, kind of a significant down day here and here. And I have to tell you that this is a little bit unusual. In fact, it is quite unusual to have each Astro energy date produce the same direction of price. In this case, all were down. And that is unusual. That's rare. I think we are overdue for a bounce for a number of reasons, technically and with the astrology. Okay, let's look at the Fed meeting. If you've looked at my other videos, we're looking at the transit chart. The inner ring here is sort of the birth chart of the Federal Reserve, 1913. That's where the planets were located. And when you do a transit chart, you put the planets in at the current date, in this case, this is the Fed announcement date, okay, July 30th. This is the Fed announcement time, and we are comparing that, the energy in that, at that moment astrologically with their initial, beginning chart. Okay, so what do I see? And this is just my opinion. I'm somewhat, using my experience with astrology and trading and so forth. But this is what I see. And I've looked at this chart now for about a year, and I've seen the changes in their policy reflected in the astrology. Well, the big thing is that transiting Jupiter is conjunct, it's been in retrograde, but it's conjunct the Mercury-Venus in the natal chart. And I see this transit of Jupiter as it's come closer to all these sort of natal planets as the shift in being more accommodative in their policy. Okay, and here it's accented this Tuesday. Okay, so put that and make a little note of that. Right now, it seems like that accommodative energy is strong on Tuesday. In addition, we have Moon conjunct Mars. Moon conjunct Mars, right at the moment that they're making the announcement. This is an aggressive, action, energetic energy. Okay, energetic energy, and so there's kind of a risk-taking energy is evident here. We have Mercury opposite Pluto. Here's Mercury in the transits. It's opposite. Maybe I've made a mistake. It's opposite Pluto in by transit, and not to the natal chart. So made a mistake in my notes here, but I was going to include that when I just started talking about the transits in general. But we also have Mars. Let's see, where am I here? Mars here by transit is interacting with Venus in the natal chart. 19 Sagittarius, 18 Leo. Venus in this chart is going to deal with money and monetary policy. Again, we have a Mars energy being activated at that moment, an assertive energy. So to me, this looks like and let me continue here. I'll just continue. So I didn't do a separate page, but just looking at the transit chart, just looking at the aspects that this outer ring of planets are making is informative as well. So look at here. We have the Sun, 7 Leo, is squaring Uranus, 6 Taurus. Okay, on the announcement day. Okay. In addition, Venus, which is sort of is very much dealing with money at this moment, monetary policy, is also squaring that energy. Uranus deals with surprises, change, shock, maybe something kind of extreme, something a little bit more, someone exercising, their will, or, doing something very different or unexpected. Well, what do they expect from the Fed? This is my point. I've finally come to the point. They are expecting a 25, basis point cut in rates. What would they not expect? What would be a surprise would be something larger than that. I doubt, really seriously doubt, given the astrology, given, the obvious statements that have been made recently by some of the Fed governors, I seriously doubt they would do nothing, okay? So what I'm leading up to here, and I'll close, is that to me, the surprise factor, the Mars assertive factor, the strong Jupiter accommodative energy, expansion energy, all suggest to me that the likelihood of a larger cut is, the odds of it are fairly high. I would say maybe like 80%, okay? And that would surprise the market. The markets would probably rally. Gold would probably rally. Bitcoin would possibly rally because the dollar would tank. It wouldn't tank, but the dollar would go lower. And that seems to be an outcome more reflected in the astrology than any other sort of outcome that I've been considering. So anyway, take it for what it's worth, see what happens, but that's sort of what the astrology is saying. So that's it for today. My name is Stephen again. I have a master's degree in psychology. I've been a professional artist for many years. I've also been studying astrology for many years, and I've been applying this to financial markets for 25. I am a sound money, hard money, cryptocurrency advocate, and if you want to subscribe, consider it. Please click my like button, and I do accept Bitcoin as a donation. So that's about it. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a good week, whatever you're doing, if you're trading in particular. Bye for now.